What's up, everyone? Welcome to our full Innistrad Crimson Vow set review. My name is Ethan Sachs. I'm joined by the host of the Limited Level Ups podcast, Alex Nikolic, aka Corticalls. We are going to be going through every single card in Crimson Vow today, and here's how it's going to work. We're going to be separating cards by color, by rarity, and within rarity, we're going to be going through them by mana value, not alphabetical. That really gives us a good sense of like what the color can do. If you are, I guess you're either watching this live or you're watching it on YouTube, so I don't need to tell you that you can find this on YouTube. What I do need to tell you is the order we're going to be going in. We're going to be starting here with the multicolor cards. There are only uncommons and then rares, and then we'll be going in Wooburg order, finishing out with colorless and lands. So to kick us off here, we have our dear friend Brian, Mr. Brian Comer. This is 1 white blue for a 1/1 spirit. It says, whenever Brian Comer enters the battlefield or becomes the target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And then it has a disturb cost of white-blue. Disturb is back, but with a twist.
With a twist.
It flips into Brine-bound Gift, which is an aura. So all of the disturb cards, they don't come back as creatures. They come back as auras. And it says, whenever Brine-bound Gift enters the battlefield or enchanted creature becomes the target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And then has the same disturb text as we're used to with it, whenever it would be put into a graveyard for anywhere, you exile it instead. All right, Alex, your thoughts generally on the new disturb twist, and then let's talk about our friend Brian here.
Yeah, as always, love doing these golden commons because they really set the stage for the rest of the set. I think it's cool. I think that it's a cool twist. It is probably less punishing to removal spells in general in this format than we saw, the old disturb method where it's just like, okay, all my cards are 2-for-1s, and you look at your hand full of removal and you're like, well, that kind of sucks. It's going to play out pretty differently, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to play out similar in the sense that, like, okay, here's a card on the front side, and, I get a little bit of value on the back side here. Just as a kind of, glimpse into the future here, I think this blue-white deck is kind of going to play out like if anybody's familiar with, like, mono blue tempo from Standard a few years ago with, like, Curious Obsession and stuff like that, where you're like piling auras on your flyers and kind of tempoing them out. I think it's going to play out pretty similar to that, with getting value from your graveyard, things dying, but also like suiting up small flyers and pecking them in. So bringing us around to our good friend Brian Comer here. This is like it's kind of exactly what you want to do, right? It's the perfect card to play early and then start suiting up with all your auras. Maybe you're not going all in on this guy because it says whenever never mind. Whenever enters the battlefield or this one. So you do have to target this one. I thought it might apply to all the creatures. But if you have 2 things in your graveyard, 2 auras, pile them on here and you can kind of get value. You don't get so punished for piling all your things on one creature because you get a bunch of flying friends along the way.
Yeah, this feels pretty much like I thought. The Graph Keeper was quite not crucial, but it really did tie the deck together in mid. This looks like everything you want to be doing with this style of deck, and I think it's a card that I would be worth speculating on or jumping ship for. Like I could see going like red card, and then going, oh, I've seen this 4th. Okay, let's check it out.
Yeah, I think as far as supported decks go, this is one of the more supported ones. So, with that, because of that, I'm willing to go, oh, hey, take this golden common early, which I might not be willing to do for one of the lesser supported archetypes, and then be like, okay, let's see if we can try to build around that. Whereas something like, I don't know, red-white, which is kind of just like a generic aggro deck, I'm less likely to do that with this. So I like this card quite a bit. I think I'm just going to give it a B to start out with here.
Yep, B sounds good to me.
Sweet. All right, moving on. Ethan, are you hopeful about the werewolves in this set? I'm hopeful, and I'm sure a lot of people, all the werewolf lovers out there, are hopeful as well.
Okay.
So we've got our Werewolf Uncommon for the set. So this is 2 green and a red. So 4 mana for a 2/5. It's got Daybound, of course, and it has an activated ability, 4 mana, 2 green red, create a 2/2 green wolf creature. So 2/5, pay 4 mana, make it 2/2. It's a pretty good deal. Nice defensive body with a little bit of mana sink. The backside, so when it goes to the Nightbound, we're all familiar with this, becomes a 5/5 trample with other creatures you control get +1/+0.
I mean, this is a good card.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna see this going forward, but I think that the werewolves in this set are just like a little bit more pushed in general than the werewolves we saw in Midnight Hunt somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that we learned from Midnight Hunt is you kind of have to evaluate the werewolves based on their front side more than their back side,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you may be able to get it, you're the backside for a turn, but if your opponent wants to turn it back today, it's gonna be pretty easy. Usually a turn night when it's just like, oof, like I just missed my land and I couldn't play a spell, or you just top deck, your opponent top deck a few lands for a few turns, and they're just like, all right, well, I was probably gonna lose this game anyways. You get a giant thing, and you can bash me with it. So really, I think Child of the Pack, which is the friend side here, is the main part of the card. You have to evaluate it. And how do we like 4-mana 2/5 that has a good mana sink?
I love me a good mana sink and limited.
Yeah, I think potentially this points to like being slightly more mid-rangey than like pure out aggressive. But that backside, I was just saying you don't get it often, but when you get that, that's a huge beating. It's a giant body, and it pumps all your other creatures.
Yeah. I also think this is quite, I don't know what the life of the format is, but I definitely know that green one of the only things it looks like green can do is splash. And so I could definitely see being like, this is a good splash card too.
Are we already going down the, oh man, green looks pretty bad this time again?
I'm just setting us up for in 5 hours.
The inevitable.
Yeah,
the inevitable when we get to green. Yeah, so I mean, this is a pretty strong card. The werewolves surprised us in a not so great way last time, but I'm willing to be optimistic on this one. This reads better than most of the werewolves we saw in Midnight Hunt. I think I want to give this one a B as well.
Great. Yeah, B sounds good to me.
Sweet.
Next up, oh baby, Ancient Lumbernut. 2 black-green for a 1/4 tree folk. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power.
Yeah, so kind of cool card. I wonder, when I first saw this card, before all the cards came out, I was like, oh man, is this green? Like, is this... They're just going, well, green-black has to have some sort of definition, so we'll do like a toughness matters, because that might come up sometimes. And there are actually, they actually have leaned into it a little bit more than that. There are, quite a few cards in the set that support this theme. So it's not just 4-mana 4/4, you get a little bit of value off your beefy creatures. There are quite a few, toughness matter cards. As it stands, this is a 4-mana 4/4 essentially. That if you prioritize some creatures with some beefy back end, that just pay you off a little bit, right?
Well, to pay you off a little bit, I mean, you can get a 5-mana 13/13, baby. So there's 2 things that I want to point out. One is that this doesn't, unlike previous iterations of this, like even High Alert, you had to then go like, well, that makes my 2-mana 2/1s worse. It makes my 3/2s worse. This doesn't nerf any of your 2-mana, your 2/1s, your 3/2s, whatever.
Great point. Yeah.
And it plays well with training. So like training is already going to have, there's the 1/4 reach in green or whatever. And then it's like, you can grow those, and this can grow too, right? This is a 1/4. And then, I guess it doesn't have training, but your training creatures that have high toughness can grow and then, be beefed up by this, so your 1/4 reach is attacking as a 5/5 with this in play. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
And yeah, I mean, 4-mana 4/4, you 6 years ago you'd be like, holy cow, 4-mana 4/4. Now it's just like, whatever, that's fine.
That's fine. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm also just quite drawn to build-arounds like this. So I'm optimistic for it, but I also think it's got a really good home in the set from what it looks like.
Yeah. I think this is still not one of the like active, just the way Innistrad sets go. The allied colors are more supportive than the enemy colors, because the allied colors are, the monsters, the zombies, the werewolves, the spirits, all that. This is kind of like a sub theme still. But I think I'm willing to put bets that this deck will come together a little bit more often than green black did in the last set. So
that's not really a good bet. Like that's not really saying much, I should say.
That is a good bet, right?
Yeah, that's definitely
I'll
a good
make
bet.
Some money off that.
Yeah.
So this card's like, decent in the vacuum, decent payoff. I think I'm probably gonna start this as like a C+. Do you want to go any higher than that?
I think I'm gonna give it a build around grade, because like
cool.
it's tough to know, like maybe this is just what black green does, but I don't think so. I think you may like, obviously again, like this as a 4-mana 4/4, that floor is, it's not so low or whatever that like yeah, I think the C plus for this on its own, and then like it's going to incidentally mess with some stuff, and then I think you could really try and go all in after, building around this exclusively. So I think I'm just going to give this like a build around B.
Sweet. Yep. Yeah. Sounds good to me.
All right.
Here we are, the headliner of the set. We got the vampires. So this is Blood Tithe Harvester. This is black-red for a 3/2 vampire. It says when Blood Tithe Harvester enters the battlefield, you create a blood token, and you can tap, sacrifice Blood Tithe Harvester. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control. Activate as only a sorcery. So, for those who have not seen blood tokens just yet, they're just like clues, food, treasures. These like artifact tokens that some creatures in the set make, some spells in the set make, and they are an artifact token that says 1 tap, discard a card to draw a card. So you get a rummage essentially. Probably a good time to talk about blood and kind of just it's how it plays with the set, just like decay and food and energy and all these additional resources. I think going in, I'm going to be evaluating all these cards as, these are probably a little bit better than they look, because aside from their baseline ability, they are just more cardboard that you can do things with, right? Mm-hmm. And that's time and time again has proven to be a very powerful thing, more powerful than they read on first glance, even if they read pretty good. So this thing coming in just like a 2-mana thing, generating a resource, is quite good, I think. And then the additional ability of sacrifice to, kill something based on how many blood tokens or twice the number of blood tokens you have, that's also really nice, right? That's like an inherent payoff. And you might even care about this being a vampire, and it's just a 2-mana 3/2. This card seems great.
That can also be a removal spell.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think this card's great. And I think, I was really coming at blood tokens from the perspective of, okay, well, what is there madness? Is there flashback? Is there disturb? And then I just saw a tweet from Ryan Sachs that was like, this is just a hand smoothing mechanic. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Easy.
Okay. Yeah. I don't need any of that other stuff. This is just good.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen in the late game? Your opponent's going to accrue like a bunch of blood tokens. And those times where you're facing the aggro deck, you're like, well, maybe they'll flood for a few turns. Not with 4 blood tokens in the battlefield. Nope. Like they're gonna find their action.
Yeah, it's just it's a looter. This is a 1-mana looter. Right, yeah, rummage or whatever, but for free, effectively. Yeah, I think this is great, and I'm gonna give it another B.
I'm gonna give this a B plus.
B plus, he says. All right.
Yeah, and just again, like a little bit of a glimpse into the future here. There are a lot of cards that say, sacrifice a blood token, do a thing. It's not just like we saw with decay. There's uses for the tokens outside there, what they say on the card. So yeah, I'm excited about this mechanic, and we'll see what other blood tokens or blood cards we have in the future.
Yeah. Next up is Markov Purifier, 1 white black for a 2/3 vampire cleric with lifelink. And it says at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. One of the things that, a lot of these cards are sort of that already. Actually, all of them, all the gold uncommons we've looked at so far are both payoffs and enablers. This less so-ish, like it's going to be hard to crack in with your 2/3 lifelink and have it survive on turn 4 or whatever. So, and you'll notice that it's at the beginning of your end step, so that would mean you would have to attack if you wanted this to trigger it. So this is probably the weakest of the 5 in terms of that. This seems like fine to me. I have not, as I said, not poured over the spoiler yet to know like just how much like incidental life gain there is in white and black to trigger this.
Yeah, I like this card quite a bit. So like,
okay.
3-mana 2/3 lifelink is passable. It's not. It's like actually I'd say passable plus even. That's a pretty good stat line.
Sure.
Just, lifelink's very good, right? I give a lot of bonus points just for anything with lifelink. We've come to learn that just an inherently powerful ability in a lot of limited sets. Now that we're more tempo based and racing matters a lot more. Not to say that it applies to every single set, but for we've seen a pattern essentially. And this is any life, right? It's not like you gain 3, you gain whatever. Like any single 1 life gain off your 1 drop that gains life or whatever that we'll see in the future. I think this is actually a pretty darn good payoff. This just sitting around and being a relevant body. I'm gonna give this one a B, and I could even see this one going up to B plus as well. Great,
I like this.
Sweet. What are you gonna give it?
Yeah, I like B. I'm into B.
Awesome. All right. Next up, we've got the last the last comer of the Mardu vampires here. We've got the red-white vampire. So this is 4 mana, 2 red-white for a 1/3 flying haste. Vampire. It says, the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 2 target creatures you control each get +1/+0 until end of turn. Sorry, I didn't read the name. It's called Markov Waltzer. So we've eventually got a 2/3 flying haster, if you want to just be that, and it pumps something else that you've played earlier. Later in the game, it can push through some damage on some a trampler or another flyer. I think this is quite a powerful, potent card.
Yeah, this crosses the threshold of, what do you in aggro decks? Your 4+ drops need to do something impactful to the board, and this not only can attack itself, but also potentially enables attacks for 1 or 2 other creatures, which is exactly what you want for your aggro deck. So that's quite good. Is this a card? Let's frame this in reason versus reward. Is this a card that makes you go, ooh, I want to draft red white, or is this a card where you've got red card, and you're like, all right, this is a reason. This is now I can pair my red cards with white cards type deal.
I think it's much more that second one because I think that red white is not a particularly pointed theme in this set. When they went through the archetypes this week, I think Gavin went through the archetypes and he was like, red white is aggro. It's okay, so we're in that we're living in that world again, which is fine. A red white aggro deck can live just off of good commons and pushed cards. And in the last set we saw, if you got all the Sunrise Cavaliers and the Sacred Fires, that was just a good deck. And not to say that this isn't going to be a thing that can come together, but I'm probably not going to want to first pick this like I would want to one of the blue-white one that we saw, where it's ooh, I really want to build around this. This is more just in a vacuum powerful card that, like you said, you can pair with your good red cards when you have a good red start, or good white cards when you have a good white start.
Yeah, so that makes me want to say C+.
Yeah, I think so too. It is pretty powerful. I think this reads a bit weaker than it looks, by the way. Reads a bit weaker than it looks, because you look at the 1/3 body and you're like, it's not that good. But being able to be kind of modular with where you put the boost is actually pretty powerful. So I had to think about this a few times and be like, this is actually a little bit better than it looks. So in a vacuum, I do like it.
A lot of folks making a Combat Professor comparison, which does seem pretty apt as a 4-mana 2/3 itself, effectively, that can then give another creature +1/+0. It doesn't grant vigilance, which was also quite strong there because the racing aspect of it. But
yeah.
Or was it or it itself had vigilance? I don't quite remember.
You could give itself vigilance because it would give whatever
it did grant vigilance. Okay. All right, next up is Sigardian Paladin, 2 green white for a 4/4 human knight. As long as you've put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature this turn, Sigardian Paladin has trample and lifelink. I find that to be the clunkiest phrasing ever. And then 1 green white, target creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it gains trample and lifelink until end of turn.
Well, I was just talking about how much I like lifelink. I like it a lot more when it's on a 4/4 and you can give it to other creatures as well. This is sweet. But
it's all conditional on you granting counters, being able to put counters on
stuff.
That's true.
So we should talk about training probably a little bit. This card doesn't specifically call out training, but it's what it's alluding to. So training is the green-white humans mechanic for this set, which essentially is, it's on creatures, and it says when you attack with a bigger creature, so a creature with more power, you put a counter on the card with training. So essentially what Sigardian Paladin here is saying is it's going to be able to pump up your training creatures. You have your 2/1 flying training creature on turn 3. You play this, you attack with both in turn 5. The flyer gets bigger, because you have a 4/4, and it's this thing's going to get lifelink. And if you want, you can pump use the ability here, target creature you control gets +1, with a +1 counter gains trample lifelink on your flyer or whatever creature it is. So this is a nice little top end card. Or mid game card for those training decks, and it does a lot of powerful stuff. I really like this one.
I think again it feels closer to the Waltzer to me than some of the other ones.
I think so. It's not like I'm gonna build my entire deck around this thing.
Yeah.
It's more of this is a really nice compliment to what my deck is already doing. Sort of like the Dawn Heart Wardens, I think, in Midnight Hunt, where it's this is a nice little 3 mana 3/3 vigilance, pumps my team. That's kind of what I'm doing here, but not like a huge draw. Just I will take this and it's gonna be really good in my deck.
Yeah, I liked the Wardens being the green white uncommon. Or
yeah.
Okay, great. I think this is a good comparison. I think I'll give it a C+.
I'm gonna go a little bit higher than that. I'm gonna give this one a B-.
Right.
All right. Next up, we've got Skullscob. So this is blue-black for a 2/2 zombie as exploit. And it says whenever a creature you control exploits a non-token creature, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So this is our first instance of exploit. Exploit is a mechanic we've seen before, and essentially what exploit says is when this creature enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice a creature, and you get the exploit effect if you sacrifice the creature. There's some rules quirks that I do actually want to go over quickly for people who haven't played with exploit before. So you can exploit a creature to itself. If you want to sack this Skullscob to get a 2/2 token, it doesn't really make sense in this context because it's just a 2/2. You can do so, but there's cards with effects where it's like, when you exploit something, your opponent sacrifices a creature, so you can just sacrifice the creature itself to make your opponent sacrifice the creature. You're not generally going to want to do that because the creatures are usually, large or sizable or flying. You want to sacrifice some little foddery thing to get the effect. So that's something you can do. A weird interaction that comes up, or just kind of unintuitive, is if your opponent kills the exploit creature before the trigger resolves, you'll cast your Skullscab, and then as the trigger goes in the stack that says you can sacrifice something, your opponent can kill it in response, and then if you choose to sacrifice something, you won't get the exploit trigger. So if you ever want to deny an exploit from the opponent, you kill the creature in response to the trigger, and they won't be able to get that trigger. So just a little thing to think about there, which is kind of unintuitive considering, it can sacrifice itself. So that's just one little quirk. But basically,
why is that true?
It's a weird thing where because it's two separate abilities, exploit says you can sacrifice a creature when this comes in. That's all it does. And then it says when you sacrifice a creature, you get this effect.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so it just won't be on the battlefield, and you haven't exploited something because it's not on the battlefield. It's very strange.
I see.
But in general, this mechanic, wants you to have fodder. It wants you to be like sacrificing small tokens or sacrificing things that give you value. And this is cool. The Skullscab, coming back to this, is actually kind of like a lord for your exploit creatures, because it's not just when this exploits something, it's whenever a creature you control exploits something, right? So, your other creature your big, thing that sacrifices to make your opponent sacrifice a creature, do that, you also get a 2/2 as well.
Here's a weird question. Let's say you have two creatures with exploit on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Or like with this on, I guess the exception is with this on the battlefield, right? This on the battlefield, another exploit creature enters the battlefield. They kill that exploit creature. You could still exploit, and then it would trigger the Skullscob.
I believe so. Man, that is a weird one. Don't quote me on that, but I think that works.
Because the exploit trigger still goes on the stack.
That is for the way it's worded. Yeah, you're right.
And then the reason, what you're talking about, so it's not that you can't sacrifice something. It's just, like, you cast a creature with exploit.
Yes.
The exploit trigger goes on the stack. They kill the creature in response. You could still choose to sacrifice a creature.
The game will ask you to sacrifice if you would like to, but you'll have a bad time if you do.
Exactly. But the exception here is because most other exploit creatures, sorry, I know we're getting lost in the sauce here, but the most other ones say, or probably maybe all the other ones say, like, when this creature exploits.
Exactly. Yes.
You get an effect.
Yes.
Okay. So all that is to say, what's going on with this card?
Well, what's going on is it's an input essentially for your exploit things with a medium to decent output. Like I said, it's kind of like a lord where it's going to be good in a deck with a lot of other exploit creatures. Here you can still get value if you just play this and sacrifice, a small thing that says when it dies you do a thing, or just maybe a creature that's been hit with the enchantment removal spell, or just like a small, you can just upgrade your 1/1 to a 2/2. But it's not gonna do that much on its own. So it's more like this gets better with more exploit in your deck.
Yeah, I like that. That feels, I think that's sort of what Blue-Black wants to do. And so I don't know if you need to call it a build around, but I kind of feel like calling it a build around.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be at home in Blue-Black. It's weird because like there's definitely Blue-Black decks in Midnight Hunt that ended up not being like super decay heavy, and so it's not just like automatically going to happen. I assume. And I think in this set, actually, there's a lower density of exploit stuff than there was decay stuff in Midnight Hunt. So you're going to have the right Blue-Black deck for it, but I'm going to bet more times than not you will. So assuming this is in a deck that makes good use of it, you've got 4, 5, 6 other exploit creatures, I think it's going to be quite good. I would give it around a B-.
Yeah, I like B- as well for the Skullscob. Next up is Vile Spawn Spider, blue-green for a 2/3 with reach. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card, and you can pay 2 green-blue, tap, sacrifice Vile Spawn Spider to create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. Activate only as a sorcery. It is interesting that this isn't Exile.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually. You could buy it back if you wanted to do some slow.
Yeah, that's
moves.
pretty cool. I mean, it's slow. Yeah, I mean,
this is a nice condensed little package, right?
Not much to be mad about here.
Yeah. It's so just alluding to the fact that green blue is self milling in the set, kind of similar to the last set we saw. It's got a lot of stuff that you can cares about how many creatures are in your grave, stuff to buy back after you've milled. So it's actively what this color pair wants to do, and this is both just like a really good body, 2/3 reach for 2, and gets that mill train going, and then it's a payoff. It's kind of like you were saying a minute ago, Ethan. A lot of these things we've seen, a lot of these gold cards are payoffs and enablers, which is always something to look out for, right? Not just one side of the A plus B, just does it both, and that's really powerful.
It's very powerful. I think again, this is just like a B minus.
Yeah, also worth noting, this actually counts itself when you sacrifice. So you're never going to get anything less than a 1/1 for whatever reason. You're not often going to do that, but it does add if it adds up when you want to actually activate the ability. You'll get one more than what's actually in your grave.
Yeah. All right, what's our last one here?
Oh, sorry, what did you want to give that one?
Oh, I gave it a B minus.
I'm going to give this one a B.
B? All right.
Splitting hairs, but yeah. Last one up, we've got the Is It Gold card. So this is Wandering Mind. This is 1 red blue for a 2/1 flyer. It says when Wandering Mind enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them. Put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So ETBs, you look at 6 cards. You can take a instant, sorcery, enchantment, artifact, planeswalker, essentially.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, we weren't so happy about Arcane Infusion in the last set. That was, the
it was fine. What Ben was like, that card's unplayable. It's just a wild
It wasn't
take.
Great. It ended up not being so good.
It's fine.
It wasn't a card you were dying to play by any
No.
means. I'd cut it, But that's the thing with this. Adding the floor of being a 2/1 flyer does add a lot, and you're gonna have the deck that has 10 non-creatures, so that this hits a reasonable amount of time, but that's not going to be too hard.
Digging 6 is a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say digging 6 is quite a bit, so I like this card a lot. Remains to be seen exactly how supported the blue-red kind of spells non-creature stuff is here, but I'm going to start this off at a B minus. Nice little value. One of the things we always say on these set reviews, Windrakes not so good, but it doesn't take that much for Windrakes to be pretty good. Just a little bit of added value makes them pretty good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go B on Wandering Mind.
Sweet.
Looks good to me. That's gonna take us to the multicolor rares. First up, we have Dorothy, Vengeful Victim. It says white blue for a 4/4 legendary creature spirit with flying. When it attacks or blocks, sacrifice it at end of combat. And then it has Disturb for 1 white blue. And it flips as Dorothy's Retribution. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, create a 4/4 white spirit creature token with flying that's tapped and attacking, sacrifice it at end of combat. A nice little throwback to Geist of Saint Draft.
Yeah. So it's like kind of like a lava axe / removal spell on the front side. There, your opponent's going to have actually a pretty tough time attacking into it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and it's only 2 mana.
Yeah, it's only 2 mana. Essentially, it gives the thing attacking death touch. This is gonna die, but their creature is gonna have to be, this thing's probably gonna eat the creature that attacks into it, right? So it's gonna buy you a lot of time if you play this on turn 2, right? It's gonna take them a while to chew through it. And then of course, if you want to make an attack with it, that's 4 damage. That's not nothing from your 2 mana card, and then it's even more damage on the backside, right? As you suit up your cheap flyer, and that cheap flyer now attacks for 5, right? That's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. What do you want to give it?
Yeah, it's a kind of interesting one. It's kind of a weird, quirky card. I think I'm into this card. I think I'm going to start it at probably a B minus. It's weird. Do you like this card better or the uncommon that we saw?
Well, that's tough. I mean, raw power, I like this better. But if I get, half a dozen or more Disturb cards, then maybe I like the other one better.
Yeah, pretty interesting. I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I just think this is just going to trade with basically the card of your choice on blocks. Like, they really just can't attack into this unless they're willing for their creature to die on the front side.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite good for a 2-mana play. And then the backside is wild. The backside's very powerful. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, I'm going to go B on this one.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I agree with what you're saying. It's like more Raleigh powerful. You know, if this is your only disturb card in your deck, which I imagine it won't be, you're going to be pretty happy to play it. So yeah, I think it's interesting. This is like right on the line of I'm not sure if I would first pick it over a good common or uncommon, you know, being a gold card. But again, in one of the more supported archetypes, I think I'm kind of into it. So yeah, I like to be there.
Yeah.
All right, next up we've got Runo Stromkirk. So this is 1 blue-black for a Vampire Cleric. It's a 1/4 flyer. So 3 mana, 1/4 flyer. Not a bad stat line. When Runo enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal a card if it's a creature card. Sorry, let me try that again. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If a creature card with mana value 6 or greater is revealed, transform Runo. So he turns into Crothis, Lord of the Deep, which is a 3/5 flyer, legendary Kraken horror. When it attacks, you create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. If that creature is a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, you create 2 instead. So that's not going to come up very much. Worth noting, the backside there doesn't, it's not like Exile end of turn. It just makes a copy of the attacking token. So it's a lot of words, very much like Ludovic from the last set, very reminiscent, just like a lot of words on this blue-black flip card. Let's parse this a little bit here. So front side is a 1/4 flyer for 3 mana. Like I said, fine stat line, and it rebuys a creature, puts it on top. If you have a really good creature in your graveyard, you can say, hey, I want to draw that next turn, right? And if you meet the little quest here of getting a really big creature, a really expensive creature, 6 mana value creature, you do transform into something pretty good. The backside is a really big threat, right? 3/5 flyer that makes copies of your attacking creatures.
Yeah, this seems fine to me.
Yeah, like I think it's just fine. It's just like a okay card.
3 mana 1/4 flyer that lets you not rebuy, like you're not getting a 2-for-1, but
exactly
getting to just put a creature card on top of your library is good.
Yeah, you're not going to be playing many 6-cost creatures in your deck in general. Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe none. But I think if you just evaluate this as the 1/4 flyer, that's a vampire, which is kind of relevant. They'll rebuy something. I think it's a solid C+.
Yeah, C+, exactly. Like a good, nice reward for being in blue-black.
Yeah, and then, you can evaluate it as, you're very lucky if you get the backside, but I don't think we want to really count that into the grade.
Right. Next up we have Aruth, Tormented Prophet. This is 1 blue-red for a 2/4 legendary creature, human wizard. If you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. You may play those cards this turn.
Whew.
That's powerful.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of card selection. Let me tell you, like card selection, Earth gotcha.
Yeah, this is, good stats, good ability. It's really hard to find somebody not to like here.
Yeah, and kind of interesting too. The way it's worded is, you'd think, oh man, I'm going through twice as many cards. It actually prevents you from losing from decking. Like you'll eventually run out of cards, and you can't, you run out of gas, and if you can't win with what you've drawn, you do lose the game. But it says it's a replacement effect, so you don't actually draw a card anymore.
Right.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so this is potentially not like a great turn 3 play, but as a, turn 5, turn 6, I've sort of played out my hand now. You're just like, all right, cool. I'm basically drawing 2 spells a turn.
Isn't it?
Or 2 cards a turn.
It's still a pretty good turn 3 play, though.
Well, right? You're sort of priced into playing one of the 2 cards, right?
But it's just card selection, right? Oh, I see what you're saying.
Let's say you don't. Whatever, you draw 2 5-drops. I mean, not that that's going to happen. Or you draw a counter spell and a 5-drop. I don't know. There are scenarios where it's going to be like, oh no, I just didn't draw a card this turn.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think it's going to be more upside than downside, though. Like in those early turns, you're likely to be able to hit your lands.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like we saw with Expressive Iteration in Strixhaven. Just playing a land off this kind of effect is pretty good. Yeah, I think I do see what you mean. You're going to get burned on this on turn 3 sometimes, but I do think it's more upside than downside.
For sure.
So, what do you want to give it?
I think a B, maybe even B+.
Yeah, I think about a B. It's a good card. Nice bit of value. No inherent synergy or anything, but just a solid value card. I'm fine with B.
All right.
All right, next up we got a crowd pleaser here. We've got Grolnuk the Omnivore. So this is 4 mana, 2 green blue for a 3/3 frog. It says whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a croak counter on it. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with croak counters on them. So I don't know. I haven't done a frog count, to be honest. I imagine this is probably the only one. Maybe there's one hiding in there or something. But basically, this is a Grolnuk is a 4 mana 3/3 that when you attack, you mill 3, plays into the self mill, and if you ever mill permanents or lands, you essentially draw them while this is still on the field.
Yeah, this is unlikely to trigger play a 4 mana 3/3. This is not going to have good attacks to survive combat on turn 5 or later.
Right.
So you'll have to get the value here from other self-mill, but that really does exist in blue-green quite a bit.
Yeah, and there's times you're just on the play where it's just like, maybe an opponent missed their 2. This can get in for an attack. Somehow you've maybe a cheap interaction spell and it does get it in. So yeah, this doesn't need to get in many times. Like you just get in once, those cards still just sit there, right? And you've essentially drawn those cards for as long as this is on the battlefield.
Right, but what the scenario you're describing is one where any card is really winning you the game, right? Like you're describing a situation where your opponent has stumbled or whatever. Like you don't need this incidental value then. I don't.
Oh, sure. All I'm saying is it's not going to be like impossible for this thing to like get in an attack in the early game. That's all.
Well, yeah, sure, okay. So, but I think you really do need the support for it to be good.
You want other self-mill for sure.
This is a build around, right?
Yes, I would think so as well. All the caveats of this kind, this kind of build around where it's like this is what the color pair wants to do anyways. But this is a powerful card when you've got the deck doing the thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I
want to give it
a build around B.
Yeah, I'm into
that. I think I haven't, like I said, not a ton of cards I've seen, but for the ones I have, there's definitely support for this.
Sweet.
Next is Halana and Elena Partners, 2 red-green for a 2/3 legendary creature human ranger. First strike and reach. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is Halana and Elena's power. That creature gains haste until end of turn. Holy cow.
Oof. Wow. Yeah. So, you like Citadel Siege? How about on a body, baby? I mean, that's kind of an upside, kind of a downside, but this is a wildly powerful card.
I mean, this is like what's it called? The red werewolf from the last set, Reckless Amplimancer or whatever, that like granted +2/+0 and haste, but this just does it without even having to flip.
This just comes down, puts counters on your 2-drop, your 3-drop, whatever it is, and even if they remove this thing immediately, like they have to have a removal spell, instant speed removal spell on your turn, on your turn, and you're probably not gonna, you can probably just run something else out so that doesn't happen. But this comes down, gives you immediate value, and then they need to kill this, or else they're just gonna die so quickly.
Yeah, this is an A.
Yeah, this is an A. This might end up in the situation where it's like, well, the red-green, but the card in a vacuum is quite powerful, so I'm pretty comfortable giving it an A.
Yeah.
All right. This next one, we come to our first Planeswalker. We've got Kaya Geist Hunter. 1 black, white for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. The +1 is creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. You put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature token you control. So that has to be a token. -2, until end of turn, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead. -6, exile all cards from all graveyards. You then create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card exiled this way.
This does not seem good for limited.
No, I don't think so either. So like the very baseline of it is like this threat of activation machine that like has some value where you're giving your creatures Death Touch, but it's only attacking creatures essentially, and then it ticks up to 6. Then you get this ultimate. But I don't think I want to really evaluate it that way. It's something that happens for sure, but as far as how much do I want to draft this card and put it in my deck? Not very much. So if you evaluate it as, if you have a few token makers, which there's not that many in the set. There's a few, mind you, but, there could be situations where you're like, hey, this is actually a pretty good Kaya deck. I have 7 token makers. It actually gets a little more appealing, but this isn't going to be a Planeswalker you want to first pick. It's going to be like one of those ones you see, 7th pick in pack 2, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll speculate on it.
So what do you give it then?
Like a a C minus in a vacuum or a D plus or something, and then sometimes you'll know when you'll want the Kaya, and you'll be the one to get it past you. At least maybe later in the season when people realize this isn't as good as it looks, or it's not just a generic muted planeswalker.
Yeah, I guess you can get multiple blood tokens on the -2.
Sure,
That's
sure.
not worth a card though.
Yeah, that's not great.
Again, not worth a card. Like someone's saying it's good in aggro because Death Touch is good. It's just that's not. If you would never play a spell that said creatures you control gain Death Touch, even if it was even if you would not play a 3-mana enchantment that says creatures have Death Touch on your turn or whatever. Like you just wouldn't do that. So I think D.
Pretty out on this one.
Yeah. Next is Odric, Blood Cursed. 1 red white for a 3/3 legendary creature vampire soldier. When Odric, Blood Cursed enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens, where X is the number of abilities, from among flying, first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance found among creatures you control.
So if this makes a blood token on curve, like 3-mana 3/3, make a blood token because my 1 or 2 drop had one of these abilities, that's a good card. Not a great card, but solid card, right? And then maybe later in the game, if this makes 2, that's probably pretty solid. Worth noting, it counts the abilities, not the creatures. So if you have 1 creature with flying in first strike, you'll get 2. But if you have 2 creatures with flying, you'll only get 1, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah. Overall, it's a kind of unimpressive workhorsey rare. Like fine, but it's not going to be a high pick.
It's pretty awkward as well as like a 3-drop because like ideally you're playing this on turn 3, and so then you're getting probably max 1 blood token in that situation.
I did a quick look through the 1 and 2 mana cards before, and there's not that many that have abilities in these colors that early. So you're not going to get the on curve token all that often. It's a fine card though. I think it's like, baseline 3-mana 3/3, maybe, get a blood token sometimes. It's probably about a C.
Yeah, C sounds good to me.
Sweet.
Next is what's up?
Yeah, we had old stick fingers.
I know.
Last one, and now we have old Rusting in this one. So this is 1 black green for a 1/4 human peasant. It's a legend. When old Rusting enters the battlefield or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. If a land was milled, you create a treasure. If a creature was milled this way, you create a 1/1 instinct. If a non-creature, non-land was milled this way, you create a blood token.
Yes.
Yeah, this is cool. You're going to get a lot of value. Just this thing sitting around, and it's an enter the battlefield. Really, really sweet card.
And it's a 1/4 to go along with your butts.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes with the
great.
butt theme.
This is a solid B.
Yeah, I might even give this a B+. Like, it's the immediate value, it's a good blocker, and it's the continued value as the game goes on.
All right, sweet. So B+ for you?
Yeah, I'm in for that.
All right, here she is. Olivia
the
Crimson Bride.
Here comes the bride.
4 black red for a 3/4 legendary creature vampire noble with flying and haste. Whenever Olivia Crimson Bride attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control a legendary vampire, exile this creature.
So, essentially when you don't control Olivia, because
right.
It's going to be pretty rare to have, unless you're very lucky. But this card's great. Right? Like, big hasty threat. I guess it's not that big. It's a medium hasty threat, but immediately brings back, a mid-sized creature.
Tapped and attacking, yeah.
Tapped and attacking, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting that this is like, in theory, the headliner card of the set, and it's like, okay.
Yeah. It's still good though. It's a very good 6-mana card.
Yeah. This is still, it's probably still, like, it's just bad if you're behind is the problem.
Yeah, sure. That is worth noting. It's you're spending a lot of mana for something that doesn't block all that well, I suppose.
It's kind of crazy. I think Organ Hoarder is better than this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of room between Organ Hoarder and bad, though.
Sure. Yeah, but I don't think this is an A-.
No, I give this a B+ though.
Yeah,
solid card. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one. This one actually might be better. This is Anji, Maid of Dishonor. So this is 2 black red for a 4/5. So pretty beefy for a 4-mana card. Legendary creature, vampire. When Anji, Maid of Dishonor, and or 1 or more other vampires enter the battlefield under your control, create a blood token. This ability triggers only once a turn. Then it has 2, pay 2 mana, sacrifice another creature or a blood token, and you drain your opponent for 2 life. They lose 2, you gain 2.
Yeah, I'm into that.
That is a place to put your blood tokens.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's big, and it creates, that a extra game object when it comes in, and this thing sits around, and they're just going to be dead very, very quickly. You just pump your mana into this thing.
Yeah, I think again another B plus.
Yeah, I'd probably actually move this one to the A- range. I think this one does enough stuff in this cheap package, and it's just like a really good body. Yeah, I really like this one. I'd move it to the A- range.
Nice. Next is Tauren's Fist of the Angels. 1 green white for a 2/2 legendary human cleric with training. And it says whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training.
Oh, wow. That gets out of hand. So, pretty small to start with, 3 mana 2/2. But training, of course, makes it bigger. And it's kind of like, monastery mentor-ish vibes.
With creatures, yeah.
Yeah. Just like, it makes a bunch of small things that eventually will get bigger. This trains the 1/1s it makes, essentially. So it's a little bit tricky, right? Because it's, it's small to start out with. So, you won't be able to get it in. But that's the whole point, right? Like, when you have a larger creature, the larger creature trains the small thing, you can start getting it in. This thing can just sit around, too.
Yeah.
Right? It just sits around, you start casting creatures, you're going to get a lot of value, and then you train them later.
Yeah.
This is great.
Like another B plus to me.
Yeah, it feels very Catilda-ish, where it's like, okay, you got like a turn window to kill this thing, or it's going to start to really go off, and your opponent's going to have a really tough time.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this one an A-, I think.
Nice.
Sweet. Next up, we've got another vampire, Edgar, Charmed Groom. 2 black, white for a 4/4 vampire noble. Other vampires you control get +1/+1. When Edgar, Charmed Groom dies, return to the battlefield transformed under its owner control. The backside comes back as Edgar Markov's Coffin. It's a legendary artifact, and it says, at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a 1/1 black and white vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on the Coffin. Then if there's 3 or more bloodline counters on it, you remove them and transform the Coffin back to Edgar. So
excuse me?
Yeah, it's like a lord that makes all his little vampire friends, and then just keeps going back and forth, and whoo boy.
Yeah, that's an A.
Yeah, this card's great. It's just a 4-mana 4/4 lord for your other vampires, and then they go, okay, I'll kill it, and you get this token maker that eventually brings Edgar back.
So you're playing red-green or whatever against this, or red, like non-black-white, because I assume there's Exile and black-white. Like, yeah. How do you just lose to this?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one.
Wow. Yeah, the card's great.
Give it an A?
I'm definitely giving it an A, yeah.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right, those are the multicolored cards.